Hi, my name is John, and my wife and I and our 4 kids have been estranged from my wife's family of about 40 people for the last 3.5 years. It's been a true no contact situation, and I wanted to share an experience that led us here. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, and there was one moment in our family story that really changed everything. Honestly, it wasn't the first moment, and that is something that I really wish people understood about going no contact. It's that people rarely walk away from family because of like one bad conversation or a misunderstood text or just one holiday conflict, or a dramatic moment. Most of the time, there has been a long pattern. It's a pattern of trying to talk and trying to explain and hoping that if you just said it the right way or picked the right moment or stayed calm enough or brought enough, examples, maybe this time they would hear you. But in our case, after we had tried to talk to several family members about some concerning patterns, we were met with a 7-page letter. And it wasn't just a letter, it was a letter that was copied to the entire family and all of their spouses. It came from my mother-in-law's email account, but over time, we learned that she actually isn't the one that wrote it. It was one of her siblings, my wife's siblings. And I won't go into all the details of the letter, but I did want to talk about the tone of it. It was basically, we all stand united. You are the problem. Your boundaries are walls. Your concerns are divisive. And talking about what happened is inappropriate. You need to honor the family system. And if you separate, you are not aligned with God. And I remember that night, us reading it and realizing, oh, like, this is not repair. This is not accountability. This is not a family trying to understand what happened. This is a family system that is trying to regain control. And that was the moment that something just broke inside of us. And it wasn't because we wanted no contact. And it certainly wasn't because some TikTok therapist convinced us to cut people off. I didn't even know that was a thing. And it's not because we were looking for a reason to be offended, but because when you finally bring the pain into the light and the response is then a coordinated attempt to silence and shame and spiritualize and minimize and collectively pressure you back into compliance, it tells you something. And I want to teach this really clearly. And that is that healthy families may disagree with your perspective. Healthy families may feel hurt. Healthy families may need time. Healthy families may say, I don't remember it that way, or I need to think about this, or I don't know how to respond yet. But healthy families do not usually need a coalition. They don't need some 7-page manifesto. They don't need to copy every single member of the family. They don't need to make the conversation about your tone and your boundaries and your therapist and books and your words, your victim mentality, or your supposed lack of honor. Because when a family system is more committed to protecting the image of the family than they are understanding the pain inside the family, it will almost always treat truth-telling as betrayal. And that is one of the biggest red flags. When you name harm and the response is, how dare you talk about this? When you ask for accountability and the response is, you are being divisive. When you set a boundary and the response is, you are punishing us. When you say, this hurt me, and the response is, after all we've done for you. When you say, I need space, and the response is, Satan is separating the family, that is not repair. That's pressure. And here's why families do this. Because dysfunctional family systems are built on roles. There are people who are allowed to define reality. There are people who are expected to absorb the pain. There are people who are protected. There are people who are blamed. And when someone steps out of their role and says, I'm not going to carry this anymore, the system often panics. So instead of asking what happened, it asks, how do we get them back in line? And that might look like guilt. It might look like spiritual pressure. It might look like rewriting the story. It might look like calling your boundaries selfish. It might look like gathering everyone together so that you feel outnumbered before the conversation even begins. And to anyone out there who has experienced something like this, I just want to say this. You are not crazy for recognizing the pattern. You're not cruel for needing space, and you are not dishonoring your family by telling the truth about your experience. And no contact is not usually where people begin. I can't say that enough. It is often where people end up after every safer, softer, and more hopeful option has been exhausted. So sometimes the final straw is not the most abusive moment. Sometimes the final straw is the moment that you realize they do not want to understand. They want you silent. And once you see that clearly, it becomes very hard to unsee.